So hello, today I thought I'd talk about the hypercube evolution. Since I've been having one for a few months, I thought it's good to talk about it a little. So let's start. So the first thing that I don't like about the hypercube evolution design is the flimsy 3D printed plastic parts of it, which they look more designed for metal rather than plastic. If we take a look at the motor idler, the motor mount for the hypercube, we'll see that the part holding the plastic is very thin, and if you can see, it's something that looks like this, and the plastic part holding the motor can easily flex with the tension of the belt, so it keeps on doing this. This is an exaggerated kind of demonstration of what happens. It keeps on flexing up and down like this, which can introduce artifacts and ringing or even issues with your belt alignment while you're printing. So I have made a redesign for the motor that has been helping me a lot, but it's still really in testing. And I sadly don't have enough time to make things, so it's going on really slow. But I'm working on a project called the Hypercube Evolution S, which is a combination of all the remixes I found from around the internet, and the ones I have worked on myself, which are only a few of them are my own designs, but I'm working on them still. But yeah, the plastic parts are very flimsy, especially the motor mount is the one that you could probably see very easily. The Y carriages also don't hold the rods very well, so the rods can still flex the holders a little bit. So it's not the rods themselves that flex in the hypercube, but rather the clamps can open up a little and flex as the rod is being moved around, which also induces not only ringing but artifacts in your print. There is a redesign from someone else that I posted on my Thingiverse project, so you could download that, and that in my experience has significantly improved this, but it still uses 3mm idlers and still uses vertical orientation, which gets me to my second point. Point 2. The vertical rod orientation for the x-axis. So, the Hypercube Evolution uses Prusa i3 style vertical orientation of the rods. And what that means is that it can flex really easily, and it can tilt around like this. If this is the rod, it could tilt like this, or I think that would be around the x-axis, I'm not sure. That actually would be around the z-axis, I think. But the rods can easily flex, and that is really bad in a Core XY design, while it works very well on a Prusa style. And the reason for that is that different forces apply to the rods in different mechanics. While on a Prusa, the x-axis just goes left and right. On a Prusa, on a Core XY style printer, the rod is constantly being thrown back and forth, which can cause a lot of tilt on the belts, considering the belts are not perfect. And it can also just cause the rods to just flex a little during those movements, again causing some artifacts and some added ringing. On a Core XY, a better design is for the rods to be horizontal like this. And as you can see, it's kind of harder to move and tilt the rods back and forth when they're oriented like this. It does make your hypercube design a little less efficient, so that's the issue I have when I want to implement this, although I have not still gotten around with that part. But I do want to do it in the future. But still, when you put it like this, it's less likely to just tilt and have issues like that. And the forces applied to it are kind of absorbed more and better. But I was still thinking of personally using V-slots on mine. V-slots obviously have their issues, like dust can build up on your extrusion and cause a little dots and spots on your prints, but if you do it right, I've heard it's pretty good. I have zero experience with V-slots, so that's something I'm not sure how it will work out, but I want to experiment with it when I have the time. Sadly, I'm pretty busy lately. This is why my videos are taking so long, but still. I thought I'd mention that. I'm thinking of using V-slots on mine. Point number 3. It is very hard to maintain and build. So the thing about the hypercube is that it's very hard to build and maintain in some areas. Notably, the Y rods are very hard to get in and get out. So taking out the Y rods require you take out the motors and the XY idlers on the back of the printer, and you have to tilt them in a weird way, and it just requires a lot of force and effort to just pull out one rod from your printer. Well, I have designed some caps, so you can just unscrew three caps on each side and just pull the rod out from there. It makes the build much easier. Instead of having to tilt the rod and tilt them back in like that, it's very hard to build that version of the printer. But yeah, I have designed caps for mine. For my motor mounts and the XY idlers, which the XY idlers use dowel pins, by the way, but they're not finished. They're very flexible, just like the original. They're a little more durable than the original, but they're still slightly flexible. So I'm going to have to improve that. But either way, the design is very hard to maintain. As you can see on the Z top rod clamps, it is very hard to get the Allen keys into the slot and find the socket of the screw to screw it in. So yeah, it just has screws in a lot of hard to reach weird spots on the printer, and it's just not easy to maintain or repair. The number 4 thing that's wrong about the hypercube evolution, or I guess the thing that's not ideal about the hypercube evolution, are the lack of instructions. As you can see, there are no official instructions from the person who made them. Neither Tech2C or Scott2D, which I have to say, I'm so sorry about complaining about it. It feels really bad, but I thought I'd still talk about it. But yeah, there are no instructions, and you know why that's bad? Everyone's gonna build their printers differently. So while I might align my rods by holding it on the top, screwing it in, pushing it down and screwing the bottom portion of the rod in, someone might just do it differently, just measure the left and right, or someone might just think of something themselves. It's up to the person to build the printer, and while that might sound like a good thing, it's a really bad thing in my opinion. And the reason behind it is that because it can introduce a lot of variation in the print, or the different hypercubes. So while my hypercube and the other person's hypercube might look different or use the same components, it can be built very differently, and some of those things can cause a lot of difference in the print. So I really wish the hypercube had a proper instruction so it can be a little more unified, like let's say the Voron, which I think is really overrated. I'm sorry. But Voron's more like a cult in my opinion than a 3D printer. It's really weird. Voron is like a cult. Like you're pretty much joining a cult rather than building a 3D printer. It's not a bad design, but it's very overrated in my opinion. It's a good printer, it's not bad. It's just overrated. People think it's just perfect and produces perfect prints, and it's really not like that. It's just an okay printer, really. In my opinion, I'm not God. Keep that in mind, please. I am not God. I am just a teenager who... Wait, I'm not a teenager, I just got 20. But I am a not so teenager anymore that's just likes printers and just does it as a hobby. So I'm not God. I could be easily wrong about these things. Don't think just because I upload videos on YouTube, I know what I'm saying. But anyway, let's get to the 5th point. Point number 5. Use of 3mm idlers. So this could just be me, but I had no luck finding good 3mm idlers. Most of them just have bad bearings in them, and what I heard from other people is that 3mm idlers are so tiny that the ball bearings are really small, so you can't get them to work very well, at least on the cheap ones. And most of the ones that I had were a little, it's not non-circular, which means the belt tension keeps increasing and decreasing as it's rotating, and it causes like a sine wave artifact on the side of your prints. As you can see, it can cause like this kind of artifacts on the side of your prints. It could be caused by bad idler. I'll fix it later. It could be caused by a bad idler, but that's not the only thing that can cause it. I was just showing you as an example of what could go wrong. Or you could have uneven layer lines more because the axis keeps tilting around like this due to the bolt tension the difference in the bolt tension. So yeah, 3mm idlers usually just suck, and I fixed mine by using a 5mm dowel pin and just like using 5mm idlers. Which also want to mention that the hypercube evolution uses washers with 3M screws, which usually doesn't work well. Sometimes instead of the ball bearing rotating, the entire idler can rotate around the screw, which wears down the screw over time. which I have seen some people having the screw threads completely stripped on their hypercubes or whatever printer they have. Overall, it's not a very good idea to use washers with 3mm screws because the washers can also touch the moving part of the idler and cause a lot of friction. And also, using washers is really hard to get the right amount, because if you use one, because I had this issue with my build, I would add one more idler to the kind of the assembly and it would start being too much and start having friction. I would remove one, and when I did that, the idlers were just clearly just wobbling and rotating around freely. So both of these things are really bad, and it's really hard to align the hypercube idlers with washers. What I see many of the better printers do is that they use a screw, they put one of the idlers here to put the other one like on the back of that printer, and they just use a nut and just clamp the screw to the top of the other screw. And I mean clamp the nut to hold the kind of idler between the top of the screw and the nut, and that usually works very well because you can just make it just be really nice and just, you know, it's far easier than adding washers. And also the good thing about that method is that you can move it up and down very precisely. So if you have some alignment issues, you can make it align very precisely with that method. The SecKit Go, I think it's pronounced, uses that method, I think, and so does the tool changer, I think. It doesn't like let you align it because it uses pre-made washers that are very precise, and you don't need to do that. You don't need to worry about that. But something like the SecKit Go, I think, or the tool changer uses that, and those are very good examples of a Core XY printer. The SecKit Go actually looks very interesting. When I have the money and I have to move out of the country, which I might soon, I'm totally gonna buy a SecKit Go probably. So I might test that out, but it looks very interesting. I have been very interested in that printer. Sadly, I don't have the money, or to be honest, a reason to purchase it, because I have a hypercube and an Incubic, so I don't need more printers really. But maybe once I move out, I can take a look at it. And let's get to point number 6. Yep, that's 6. Point number 6, the belt path. So this is kind of the same as my previous point. It kind of merges to each other, but the belt path is very hard to align in my opinion. I made sure my frame is square. I push everything to the top of the frame to align, and yet my belt path is slightly out of alignment. And if you don't know, on a Core XY printer, belt alignment is crucial because the moving portions of the belt, the length varies, and it can become, and your axis just moves up, back and forth. And what that causes is the bolt to just kind of get pushed left and right and kind of increase and decrease in tension. And that can cause a lot of artifacts in your prints. Mine is kind of minimal, so I haven't bothered fixing it. It prints just fine really. But it does still have that misalignment, which I can see by the bolt moving up and down and tilting like this kind of as it's printing, which tells me it's misaligned, but I couldn't just fix it because it's very hard to make the belt path very good on the hypercube. Especially since those rear idlers are so dependent on each other, you know? So it's kind of hard to do that. And the way the Y kind of carriages work is that they clamp like this to the wire bearing, and sometimes just a little artifacts, just some bad bridging here can make it go more back, or can even make it tilt up or down. I guess that's right. You can make it tilt up and down, and that can cause your idlers to be at an angle, and that is just really bad. So it's kind of hard to make the build path really well on the hypercube. Again, you should take a look at the SecKit Go and the tool changer from E3D to see better examples at least of that. But the SecKit Go has one big disadvantage that I've seen, that it doesn't have any good methods of changing the bolt tension, which is crucial on a Core XY. While the Prusa printer doesn't care that much about the tension, as long as it doesn't skip really, it's kind of fine. I mean, I know it matters, but it doesn't matter that much. On the Core XY printer, the belt kind of tension is very crucial to your printer working well. So a Core XY printer needs a really good method to adjust the belt tension, and the SecKit Go doesn't have that, but I'm sure it wouldn't be really hard to implement it on your own with a 3D printed part. But still, that was worth mentioning. Anyway, Is there a point number 7? Yes, there is. Point number 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, 7. So the point number 7 is that it lacks some of the crucial components, and for someone like me, I realized that too late. So the one thing you will notice after building it is that there are no extruder mounts for the build. And what I did was basically use a really long bowden tube, put the extruder on a chair next to it, and just print the extruder assembly and then put the extruder back to the printer. But yeah, it doesn't include some of the components like that, and you realize it too late. Like, I used the glass on mine and didn't realize there are no ZN stuff, so I had to kind of remove the homing command from my print and just home it manually with a piece of paper, and then start the ZN stop print for mine, which I found from another person who put it there. But yeah, it lacks ZN stop. And there are some other things like a filament mount, it lacks that, but that one is not that big of a deal. But like it's like after you build it, you get frustrated because you realize, oh, I didn't think of that. Why didn't the guy like just mention that at least? It doesn't include an extruder mount, or that was just one of the components. I forgot how many it missed, but it's kind of annoying to notice that afterwards. But yeah, that was all that's wrong with the hypercube evolution. It is not a terrible design. It might sound like I'm saying it's a terrible design, but there are flaws with everything. And the hypercube is not a terrible printer, it's just not a good one, in my opinion. What I've been trying to improve with, I still think if you have not built a printer, you should not look at the hypercube evolution or even the Evo S I'm designing, because the Evo S is just meant to kind of help people who already invested money in it get a better print out of the already invested money in hypercube evolution. But if you have not built it, if I'm being honest, I have not seen many good CorexYs that are published publicly on Thingiverse or anywhere. Like, I've seen my friends design some of their own, but they never published them. So it's kind of sad, but yeah. I have not seen many good ones. Well, one thing I recently saw is that it has a disadvantage of needing kind of machined aluminum or open build, I think, parts. It's kind of metal parts you need to buy and purchase, but it's good design from what I've seen. I just took a quick look at it, I'm not sure really. But that one is a rat rig V-core, I think. It uses V-slots, so keep that in mind. And I don't like that it uses V-slots for the Z-axis, because V-slots don't work well with really heavy loads, as far as I've heard. I'm not sure if that's true. But the kind of load that's applied to the Z-axis, if you can see, is kind of the bit pushing this way, because it only has one Z-rod, I think. Z-motor, I mean. So yeah, it does have that one flaw, but I think it's pretty good. I'm not sure though. You have to research on your own, sadly, for that part, because I have not had the experience of building any of them. Because, you know, it's one thing to take a look at a printer, it's another thing to build it and see the issues for yourself. So yeah, that was my rant, kind of. I'm not sure what you could call it, but it was kind of like, I guess, some sort of warning about the hypercube evolution. It's not like something that's evil and terrible, and like, I'm not saying Scott Creedy is dumb or anything, and trust me, it's really hard to design a printer. But yeah, I just wanted to talk and mention the flaws of the printer. In case you are looking to build one, you could know it. And you know, shruggity. That was terrible, but still. And yeah, that's all. Thank you for watching.